Welcome to Cosmic Tales, a show about the myths, history, and science hidden in the night sky. I'm your host, Diana, and together we'll explore the cosmos one tale at a time. Tonight, we're looking at Crux and the Southern Cross, or, if we're being unromantic about it, an upside-down plus sign, a very famous upside-down plus sign. Previously, we looked at Ursa Major and its most famous pattern, the Big Dipper, and how that shape doubles as a kind of built-in navigation tool in the northern sky. But there's an immediate complication. That whole system doesn't work everywhere. If you're in the southern hemisphere, the Big Dipper never rises at all. It simply isn't part of your sky. So the southern sky developed its own solution, and instead of something sprawling and complex, it's surprisingly compact. Crux and the Southern Cross. And this is where things get a little tangled. Crux and the Southern Cross are often treated as one, even in some scholarly discussions, but they're not the same thing. Crux is the official constellation, one of the 88 defined by the International Astronomical Union. It's the full region of sky, including everything inside its borders: faint stars, deep sky objects like the Coalsack Nebula, and the bright cluster known as the Jewel Box. It's also the smallest of the 88 constellations, which is almost surprising given how prominent its core shape is. The Southern Cross, on the other hand, is the asterism, that core shape, the four bright stars that form the cross or kite pattern people recognize in the sky. If Crux is the whole neighborhood, the Southern Cross is the landmark you use to find your way through it. Crux itself used to be part of a larger constellation, Centaurus, until the slow wobble of Earth's axis gradually pushed it out of visibility for much of the ancient Mediterranean world. Over time, it slipped below the horizon for those cultures and faded from their tradition. But in the Southern Hemisphere, it never disappeared. And there, under entirely different skies and cultural histories, it became something much more than a leftover fragment of Centaurus. It became a guide. Let's dive into the ancient drama that turned a group of stars into a legend. One of the richest traditions comes from India, where this constellation wasn't a cross at all, but a king. Trishanku was a ruler from the Solar dynasty with an unusual ambition. He wanted to ascend to heaven in his own living body, not after death, not as a soul, but fully and physically. That, in most versions of the tradition, is simply not how the system is supposed to work. Heaven is reserved for the dead. So he went first to see his royal priest, the sage Vasishta, and asked for help. Vasishta refused, saying the request was impossible and either morally or cosmically wrong. Some versions emphasize his past actions. Trishanku is said to have committed serious transgressions, including kidnapping a Brahmin bride on her wedding day, killing a sacred cow, and eating its flesh, which is about as clear a violation of religious order as you can get. Other versions focus less on punishment and more on principle, the idea that a living body simply doesn't belong in the realm of the gods. In the end, Vasishta would not help him, so Trishanku turned to Vasishta's sons. That did not go well. They were so offended by the request that they cursed him to become a Chandala, an outcast, placed at the very lowest rung of social order. His royal identity was stripped away. His appearance changed. He was cast out of everything he had been. At that point, most people would have stopped. Trishanku did not. Even in this state, he went to the great sage Vishvamitra, a powerful rival of Vasishta, known for his willingness to push boundaries that other sages considered completely off limits. Vishvamitra agreed to help and performed an immense sacrificial ritual on Trishanku's behalf. The result was so powerful that Trishanku actually began to rise into the sky bodily, which is not a normal outcome for a ritual. But as he reached the heaven, Indra, king of the gods, rejected him and sent him falling back to earth. Vishvamitra, unwilling to accept that outcome, responded by attempting something even more extreme. He began creating an entirely new cosmic order around Trishanku, new stars, new constellations, even the foundations of a new Indra. At that point, things escalated quickly enough that the rest of the divine hierarchy decided to step in. A compromise was reached. Trishanku would remain suspended in the sky forever, neither admitted to heaven nor allowed to fall back to earth, fixed in an in-between state. And that is where he is said to remain, because Crux is traditionally identified with Trishanku's position in the sky, an upside-down figure held permanently between worlds. As a side note, the Sanskrit phrase Trishanku's Svarga, Trishanku's heaven, entered the language as an expression for anything half-achieved, suspended between two states, neither here nor there. It is, depending on your perspective, either a warning about ambition or a fairly inspiring story about a man who annoyed so many gods that they had to build him his own sky just to make him stop. But not every culture that looked at these same stars saw a story of divine conflict. Some arrived at the Southern Cross from an entirely different direction. Instead of seeing a king trapped between worlds, they saw something practical, something useful, something woven into everyday life. In Australia, Aboriginal sky traditions offer something genuinely different from almost anything else we've covered so far. Most constellations are drawn in starlight. The emu in the sky is drawn in darkness. Instead of connecting bright stars, it is traced through the dark dust lanes cutting across the Milky Way, negative space turned into meaning. Its head is formed by the Coalsack Nebula beside the Southern Cross, while its neck and body stretches along the Milky Way toward Scorpius. Variations of this figure appear across many language groups and across much of the continent, making it one of the most widespread astronomical traditions in Australia. And it isn't just something to look at, it's a calendar. For the Kamilaroi, Ualei, and many other Aboriginal peoples, the emu's changing position across the year mirrors the life cycle of real emus on the ground. In autumn, when the emu appears stretched out with visible legs, female emu are laying eggs and the collection season begins. The people gathering the eggs are the community members. Emu eggs are an important food source. The appearance of the emu in the sky tells people when eggs are available. In winter, as the legs fade and the figure settles lower in the sky, male emus are brooding on nests. Later, when the shape shrinks and resembles a single egg, chicks are hatching and egg collection comes to an end. The sky is not simply telling a story about the emu, it is tracking the emu in real time with the precision of a field guide written across the night sky. Sometimes that connection between sky and land becomes literal. In Ku-ring-gai Chase National Park near Sydney, the Ku-ring-gai people carved an emu into the rock itself. Its shape and orientation mirror the emu in the sky, earth and sky reflecting each other, with the engraving functioning as both artwork and astronomical marker. To understand why all of this mattered beyond simple practicality, you have to understand the dreaming. The dreaming is not mythology in the way many Western traditions use the word, not a collection of old stories about things that happened long ago. The dreaming is something much bigger. It's the foundational framework of existence itself. It describes the time when ancestral beings moved across the land, shaping rivers, mountains, animals, people, and the sky, and in doing so, established the laws that still govern life. Every social obligation, every ceremony, Every rule about when to hunt, when to gather, and when to leave something alone, all of it traces back to what those ancestors did and left behind. And importantly, the dreaming is not past tense. It did not end. It is still ongoing. In some southeastern traditions, that connection between sky, law, and daily life appears in a figure named Darumulan, a being associated with the sky, initiation ceremonies, and the rules that structure society, connected through an emu wife to the celestial emu itself. That means looking up at the emu in the sky was never just casual stargazing. It was a reminder of ancestry, a reminder of responsibility, a reminder of when to take from the land and when to leave it alone, and of the ceremonies that connected living people to the beings who first shaped the world. Taking eggs at the wrong season was not simply poor resource management, it was breaking rules embedded in the structure of the world itself. And that is what makes the emu in the sky such a remarkable tradition. It is a celestial calendar, a field guide, a legal framework, a sacred story. And it's written not in the stars themselves, but in the dark spaces between them. Trishanku hangs upside down between heaven and earth. The emu's eyes stare down from the dark spaces of the Milky Way. The Southern Cross has been a gateway, a calendar, a navigation tool, and a canvas for some of the most distinctive sky traditions in the world. All in the same 4 stars, all at the same time. Finding south works a lot like finding north with the Big Dipper, with one important difference. The southern hemisphere doesn't have a Polaris. There's no bright star sitting conveniently above the pole waiting to do all the work for you. Instead, navigators use the cross itself. Draw a line from Gay Crux at the top through A Crux at the bottom, then extend that line about 4.5 times farther. That gets you to the South Celestial Pole. It's marked by absolutely nothing in particular, creating its own kind of special navigational challenge. The North gets a bright beacon that has guided travelers for thousands of years. The South gets an empty patch of sky and a geometry problem. Somehow, people still managed. One thing worth knowing before you head outside looking for it: there's an imposter. A slightly larger, slightly fainter pattern of stars made from parts of Vela and Carina. It looks enough like the Southern Cross to fool plenty of beginners. It's called the false cross, and unlike the real one, it points nowhere useful. So if your cross seems slightly wrong and south has mysteriously stopped being south, you've probably found the imposter instead. Consider it the Southern Skies version of a pop quiz. The Southern Cross hasn't always belonged exclusively to the south. Earth's slow axial wobble has been shifting its position in the sky for thousands of years. Long ago, it was visible from places like ancient Greece and Egypt. Those civilizations almost certainly watched it drift lower and lower over generations before eventually slipping below the horizon altogether. Today, it's mostly invisible north of roughly the latitude of Miami or Taipei, which means a huge portion of the northern hemisphere has never seen it at all. That's one of the strange things about astronomy. This is a constellation so culturally important that it appears on the flags of 5 nations, yet most of humanity lives too far north to ever see it with their own eyes. So, what exactly are we looking at when we look at Crux and the Southern Cross? The 5 stars that form the Southern Cross are A Crux, Mimosa, Gay Crux, Emai, and Ginon, and as a group they punch well above their weight. 2 of them rank among the brightest stars in the entire sky. A Crux, at the base of the cross and the star used to point toward the South Pole, is the 13th brightest star in the sky. To the naked eye, it looks like a single point of light. It is not. A Crux is actually a 6-star system, which it kept fairly quiet until astronomers started looking more closely. At its center are massive blue stars burning at extraordinary temperatures. The brightest component alone shines around 25,000 times more brightly than our Sun and carries nearly 18 times the Sun's mass. Stars this large don't age quietly. They are expected to end their lives as supernova. Mimosa, the second brightest star in the Cross and the 20th brightest star in the sky, has its own complications. It's a spectroscopic binary, meaning the two stars orbit so closely together that even telescopes can't easily separate them visually. Instead, astronomers catch them through tiny shifts in their combined light. And Mimosa is young, really young. At around 10 million years old, it is barely getting started by stellar standards. Our Sun is about 4.5 billion years old, which makes Mimosa the equivalent of a small child with access to nuclear fusion. It is also likely the hottest first-magnitude star in the night sky. And despite sounding like it should be served with brunch, the name Mimosa probably comes from its slightly pinkish color, one of the more charming naming decisions in astronomy. Crux and Mimosa, along with Emei, are probably related in a more literal sense too. All three are thought to belong to the Scorpius-Centaurus Association, the nearest large grouping of young, massive stars to our Sun. Several of the Southern Cross stars were born together in the same stellar nursery, relatively recently by astronomical standards, and are still moving through space in roughly the same direction. The Southern Cross is, in a very real sense, a family portrait, its members drifting together through space. The most famous deep sky object in Crux isn't made of stars at all. The Coalsack Nebula is a dark nebula, a cloud of interstellar dust so dense that it blocks the light from everything behind it, leaving a striking black void cut into the bright band of the Milky Way. It spans roughly 7 by 5 degrees of the sky, an area several times wider than the full moon, spilling over into the neighboring constellations Centaurus and Musca. At about 600 light-years away and around 30 to 35 light-years across, it's large enough that humans almost certainly noticed it long before telescopes ever existed. The Spanish navigator Pinzon recorded it in 1499, and Amerigo Vespucci later referred to it as Il Canopo Fosco, the Dark Canopus, which is a beautiful name for something defined entirely by absence. A quick note on what a dark nebula actually is. Most nebula glow either because nearby stars energize their gas or because they reflect starlight. A dark nebula does neither. It's simply a cold, dense cloud of dust so thick that light can't pass through it, the interstellar equivalent of a wall. The Coalsack is one of the most visible examples in the sky, which is slightly paradoxical because you can only see it because of what it hides. That deep, unmistakable dark patch against the Milky Way is exactly what you're looking for. You'll know it when you see it. It's the hole in the sky. The Jewel Box cluster sits just beside the Coalsack, and the contrast could hardly be more extreme. Where the Coalsack is darkness and absence, the Jewel Box is a tight, glittering knot of roughly 100 stars packed into a small patch of sky. John Herschel, who described it in the 19th century as a casket of variously colored precious stones, really wasn't exaggerating. Through a telescope, it immediately looks exactly like that. It's also very young, only about 14 million years old, and most of its stars are hot blue supergiants. The main exception is Kappa Crucius, a red supergiant sitting right at the cluster's center, glowing like a single ember surrounded by sapphires. 3 of the brightest stars, 1 red and 2 blue, are sometimes nicknamed the traffic lights, which is less poetic than Herschel's version, but still surprisingly accurate. The jewel box is just visible to the naked eye under dark skies, but it's in a telescope that it really comes alive. And with the coal sack sitting right beside it in the same field of view, the contrast becomes almost impossible to ignore. Brilliance and darkness side by side. Which is, in a way, a pretty good summary of the southern sky. And so we arrive at the strange and fitting truth about the smallest constellation in the sky. It is the most storied. Trishanku hangs upside down in his private heaven, neither arriving nor departing, the eternal emblem of the half achieved. The Aboriginal emu strides across the darkness between the stars, tracking the seasons with a precision that needed no telescope and no calendar, just generations of careful watching. 2 traditions out of many, all fascinating in their own way. If you ever find yourself south of the equator on a clear night, step outside and look up. The Southern Cross will be there, smaller than you expect, brighter than it has any right to be. Take a moment with it. It guided navigators across oceans before the compass existed, and it appears on the flags of 5 nations. Not bad for something that looks, at first glance, like an upside-down plus sign. This has been Cosmic Tales. If you've enjoyed tonight's journey, follow and subscribe wherever you listen, and leave a rating if you have a moment. It genuinely helps. You can also find us on Instagram at Cosmic Tales Pod, where we post images of the constellations, deep sky objects, and everything else we talk about, so you can put a face to the name. Until next time, keep looking up, because every star has a story waiting to be told.